This is Bill Combs
and Jeff Newton
with Flashbang Creative.
Hey everybody, Jeff and Bill back again on the Flashbang Creative Podcast. Hey, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to dive in on audience penetration. And before we jump in there, speaking of the audience, happened to catch last week that we got our first review on iTunes from a listener, Chris Withers. Shout out to him. Thanks for following us. Appreciate it. Hope we deliver on the content that you were looking for. Really appreciate the feedback. For those of you that are liking what we're putting out there, are finding any value in the podcast we've created so far, I would just encourage you to go out to iTunes, subscribe to it so you get notified when a new episode comes out, and if you would, leave a review, and if not, no hard feelings. As we transition here into talking about the audience penetration, maybe I'll just float the question to Bill. You know, when I say audience penetration or finding your audience, you know, what do you think of from the business perspective?
I think of a vast array of areas and spaces that people live in daily. Obviously, the biggest area these days is social media. However, there are multiple fronts in that fight to generate followers. A lot of people obviously use Facebook. Facebook is really user-friendly from a business standpoint. It's very easy to reach your audience and to interact. However, a lot of people are using Instagram now, which Instagram's actually awesome. It's turning out to be my favorite, especially from the instructor's side. You can get some really cool images out on the range with your students, and it's just like a big billboard for you to post some really awesome attention-grabbing images. There's not so much of discussion per se, but you know, I think that psychology shows that visual imagery really grabs people's attention. So I think, especially
in today's world, I was reading the other day that the new, at least Western attention span is less than a goldfish, so less than 8 seconds as far as the attention span goes. So when you can reach out and identify with somebody through an image, obviously you fall within that threshold and can capture it there. So I thought that was an interesting.
Well, and to be honest, it's kind of the easiest, really. I mean, you don't really have to put much thought into it. You're just taking some pictures and posting them with a cool little blurb down in the bottom and some well-crafted hashtags, which is a subject that we would probably have to get into. But
yeah, maybe before we dive too deep in this episode, I would just say that if we start talking a little too deep or over your head in some of this stuff today, then be on the lookout on our Facebook page, as well as our website. We're going to be creating and rolling out a bunch of how-tos, step-by-step guides on how to create a Facebook page for your business, how to create a YouTube channel, how to set up an Instagram for Business account, how to use it, you know, what's the appropriate way to like, mention, tag, you know, all of the things that you're going to need to know that you may or may not know about right now. We're going to dive into that and produce some high quality guides so that, again, you can just take that guide, sit down at the computer or on your smartphone and be done within a matter of minutes, because we know everybody's at a different area of the spectrum, so to speak, where they're at and what their social presence or digital presence looks like. And that's fine, because we started with no presence years and years ago. And maybe that's one other thing I'll mention again before we dive in too deep. If you happen to look up Flashbang Creative on Facebook or Instagram or any of the social media sites, you'll notice that there's really not much there right now. And that's not because we haven't been in the firearms game for a long time. We've just been doing it through a different business or with other businesses behind the scenes.
Well, and we created that Facebook page mainly as a platform to reach you guys, our audience, and engage with.
Yeah, our hope is that the Facebook page for Flashbang Creative really becomes more than anything just a community for the listeners. We can post the deliverables that we create, that high value content we can place up there. We can create, a communication channel that's easy for everyone to use, and it's most likely it's where you already are. So if you haven't already, jump on there and make sure to like and follow us there, and we'll be posting questions, and you can certainly ask us questions or send us a message there to ask us to talk about something specific. So.
Yeah, and real quick, there's no way we're going to be able to do this within 20 minutes, but I just wanted to add, since Facebook's kind of where we're primarily going to keep in touch with you guys, if there's something you guys want, as far as a value-added piece, be it a document or a handout or something like that, get with us. We can create that stuff, and if there's enough people that raise their hand and say, yeah, we would love to have something like that, hell, we'll create it and we'll throw it out there for free.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. We're here to support the community. So by all means, let us know what you need. We have the technology. Okay, let's back up a little bit. You asked me...
Penetrating your audience.
Yeah, I'm going to penetrate this pretty good. Facebook. That's probably the best space to be on, especially from the beginner standpoint of breaking into the social media realm. Now, there is a big difference here. You should have your personal Facebook page. If you don't have one, you're going to have to set that up first. And we will generate some videos to teach people how to do that. That part's pretty self-explanatory. But creating a business page is a little bit different. There's a few extra hoops to jump through and a little bit to think about. But we're going to help you do that. We're going to answer those questions. But just so you know, you're going to need two. You're going to need your personal Facebook page and then your business Facebook page.
And we'll give you a couple of tips too when you're creating that page of how you can be a little less direct with what you are and how you do it, so that you won't be bastardized immediately and given the scarlet letter of not going to show up on anybody's feed.
Yes, definitely. So Facebook's where you're going to want to move your business into first if you haven't already. It's great as we're using it. It allows you to communicate with people who are your followers and or your students. I would encourage all of them, always encourage them to follow you on your social media profiles, because it's a one and done. You make a post, hey, I'm having this class, next month. It's a builder on the class I hosted last month, which, you're going to have X amount of people who might be interested in that. So it's a really great place to promote the next step in their journey with you as their firearms instructor guy.
Yeah, and one of the things we hit on in a previous episode too is that it's all about building a relationship. You have to get out of the mindset that this is all just a transaction. I'm hosting a class, you pay me dollars, you come to class, and you leave. If that's your mindset and if that's the way you've been approaching it, you have to change your mindset to start building a relationship with these students and creating a long-term relationship with them, so they want to continue their education path with you and through you. Otherwise, you're going to see a sharp decline in, what it costs and how much you can make off of, being an instructor.
Well, and here's a point that this was a hard lesson learned. We have a mentor that's helped us out when we first entered the firearms business space, and he gave us the playbook straight up. He gave us the playbook, and we did not follow it. Rule number one is consistency. You want to post something every single day, and you want to post between 1 and 3 posts per day. If you post over that, people are going to ignore you or unfollow you or something like that. But the reason why you want to post at multiple times a day, and here's something else, you can schedule these posts. When you have a business page, you can schedule a post. You can build it out for the entire week. Hell, you could do the whole month. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. And that keeps people that keeps you in people's feeds, right? People check their social media stream at multiple times a day, and they might miss what you had to say earlier. And it doesn't mean that you have to say the same thing again, but you could say the same thing but in a different way, and that's how you stay relevant.
Yeah, and just a quick mindset point on that too. You do not want to get into the the habit of a take relationship. So what I mean by that is these posts that you're going to be putting out there can't always be, come see me at my course, come buy this,
come give
buy
me
that,
your money,
come do this, come do that, give me your email address, all those things. You need to flip that and just understand that the more value you push out there into the world, the more that's going to reciprocate, and they'll remember that, and they'll come back and think of you whenever the time comes for them to take a firearms course or any of those things. So it needs to be a give, and you can throw a take in every once in a while, but you just need to watch the rhythm at which you're putting those out. Otherwise, it's just as easy to unfollow or remove from the feed, because they aren't going to want to feel like they're constantly being asked.
Well, and here's the cool thing, and it surprises me, it's shocking how many individuals don't think of past students as viable contacts. So let's say you don't have this business Facebook page or whatever social media platform that we're going to talk about in this. Well, hopefully you still have their email addresses. So all you got to do is draft up a generic email, hey, it's been a while. I wanted to let you guys know, or let you know, you want to be talking to them, that our business is doing great. We've started a new Facebook, Instagram, whatever profile. Please click the link below and follow us. And so that's like the easiest way to go 0 to 60 in having some followers, people who are watching you. And when people are watching you, that's when you can start drip feeding them, some information on upcoming courses to put those dollars back in your pocket. But here's the cool thing about Facebook. So I'm all about doing things fast and effective with as little effort as you have to, especially when you're doing this by yourself, right? So Facebook has this cool thing called Facebook Live, where you can basically go live video over your smartphone, or I suppose you could do it from a laptop or something like that. Well, if you have enough followers, say you've got a couple hundred or even a couple thousand, if you've been doing this for long enough, that should be relatively easy to achieve. You say, hey, I'm going to be going live tomorrow at 8 p.m., and then you do go live, do a Q&A session with them. Let them ask you some questions.
Engage them.
That's value-added content, right? With very little work involved, because all you're going to do is peck away on your keyboard and or answer them via a live stream, kind of like Skype or something like that, to put it into perspective. Yeah. There's no workup. There's no...
you'll read their questions and you'll just respond verbally on camera. And the nicest part about that is you're going to be speaking directly to your target audience in that case, and you're going to be talking about only what they want to hear about, because guess what? They chose to come on and watch you live and submit a question that they want an answer to. And there's no way to no better way to position yourself as the subject matter expert or the trusted advisor with your either existing students or potential students, and get them to know, like, and trust you, and ultimately take a course with you.
Well, and consistency, like I mentioned earlier, is key, right? So maybe you do this every Friday or every Wednesday at a certain time. Wednesday at 8. Tune in, ask me your questions. You're the subject matter expert, and or at least want to appear to be. But it's a great opportunity for you to generate some value-added content with very little effort involved.
And don't think too that it's sort of a one-time time investment that won't ever get you long-term benefits, because guess what happens after you stop being live? That live feed stays active in your feed, so at any point in time someone could go back and see any of that historically, and everything that you put down, granted they may not have seen it live, but they may have a question that someone else did, and they'll be able to get the same value out of watching it.
Well, and the cool thing is there's third-party apps out there that allow you to do all of this simultaneously, so you can blast content out with only having to peck it in once, right? And it'll blast out to your Facebook page, out to your Instagram page. But you can also use a third-party app to go live on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube all at the same time. Bam, too easy. You just hit 3 different spaces, which I guess that brings me back to, audience penetration. Not everybody has a Facebook account. I am not a big Facebook guy on the personal side. On the business side, I love it. I obsess over it because it equals dollars in your pocket. But not everybody is on Facebook, so you need to get into their spaces. Everybody who's a gun guy loves to watch YouTube videos on guns, so that's a good space to be in. You can subscribe. They could subscribe to your channel, and you do these live Q&A sessions. That's awesome right there.
Yeah, kind of going back to that main point, we can talk a lot about which platforms you should be on, but you really have to learn to be...
all of them.
Yeah, well, all of them. You need to learn to be a lot more selfless, I guess I would say. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that you need to understand your customers and where they are, where do they spend their time, where do they go for their information, how do they prefer to consume information, and you got to go down that list and map it all out. And it may be a complete 180 from how you like to do things or how you do things, but guess what? You don't matter. The only thing that matters is that you get in front of the people that are waiting to give you money for what you offer to them. And so you need to really change the way that works. And if you find that you're struggling maybe with doing that on your own, then just start asking the questions, especially if you're an instructor, right? Most of you probably are. It's why you're here. Maybe start floating some of those qualifying questions in a class when you have 5, 10, 20 of them in a classroom. Hey guys, where do you spend, which social media platform did you post about going to this training today on? Or if I asked you to follow me, which one would it be on? It doesn't have to be anything that is this really obstructive or intrusive or time-consuming thing. Simply asking people that you're already in front of is an easy way to know where to go and where to put your time.
Well, and the cool thing about the digital space, especially from a marketing standpoint, is it allows you to see what works. You can quantify it. So we will teach people how eventually to have some analytics behind the things they're doing. I mean, basically you do a call to action on social media or on your website, then you can measure it, So that's why, running an ad in a magazine is fucking dead. I mean, it's dinosaur age. I mean, so I remember when we entered the firearm space as a dealer distributor, some of my buddies were saying, man, you should get an ad in Recoil magazine, which, by the way, I love looking at Recoil magazine, but I couldn't tell you one ad in that magazine. I'm looking at the guns and reading reviews and looking at it's like a porno for dudes that love guns. It's a beautiful magazine, but how do you quantify that your ad worked?
Yeah.
What do you know?
Spend the same amount of money on an ad in a print ad as you would over the course of however long you wanted to in the digital space, be it Facebook or any of the other platforms we can talk about. You'd spend that same amount of money, but behind that money, you'd be able to look and see exactly how many people saw it, how many people took action on it, how many people did that convert over to a sale, and you know exactly what the ROI is on those same dollars. In a magazine, you have zero intelligence, you have zero
I can personally guarantee that if you give away free shit, give away some classes, that's going to generate more revenue than an ad in a magazine ever is going to.
Yeah, and think about the classes that you do teach. I mean, how many courses do you offer, or how many Saturdays do you show up to where you have 1 or 2 or 3 open seats? What's the harm in having given 1 away? And let's just say you had 10 people, but you only sold 9, so you put an extra person in there. How many people over the course of that next week or next month is that free person going to talk and rant and rave about the experience they had over the weekend of, maybe it isn't, I went and got my CCW, maybe it was something else, but even if it was, they're going to be talking about you winning their free spot on your Facebook page or your Instagram feed. And it's far more marketing. And by the way, it's the best form of marketing, which is word of mouth. So it's far more high value marketing that you'll get, especially if you generally have a course that has 1 or 2 slots open anyway. Just go ahead and get that going as almost a recurring thing. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, but give that seat away since it's going to be empty anyway.
Everybody should be giving away group discounts also, right? So if I take a course, I'd like to bring a friend. Then both of you should get a discount. Why? Because that just put more money in your pocket. That course that you were going to sell to one guy turned into, I'm going to give you a 20% discount for the both of you. You know, that right there, that's easy math, and more asses in the chairs of your course equals more dollars in your pocket.
Yeah, and if you're really hesitant at first to take any hit monetarily, then maybe you make it a future benefit. So maybe you give a $5 off, $10 off, something like that, some sort of concession on that class that they're both coming to right now. But then you build in as a follow-up, you know, here's a $20 voucher, or I'll put you on a list. Call me before you sign up next time on that next course you want to come to. Because let's face it, if you gave them that future dollar off, if they never came back to you anyway, you're not out any money. And if they do come back to you, and let's just say it's a $100 course and you gave them $20 off, that's $80 net new that you do have now that you probably or potentially wouldn't have had if you wouldn't have enticed them to come back to you.
Well, and you just increased your sphere of influence by an exponential number, because now you've got a new customer who's going to be talking about it on Monday with his buddies on, you know, at work.
Right.
And, you know, so that's also part of audience penetration is sometimes you got to give away something to get a higher return.
Right. So without getting too far off the topic of social media, as we talk about those giveaways, don't just put it up there as a text, you know, hey, I'm giving away a free class to my course next Saturday at 8 a.m. Good to go. Because text gets lost in feeds, and feeds are, you know, your timelines or whatever, it depends on the platform. It gets lost in the sea of other information. So, you know, make sure it's a attention grabbing image. You also want to make sure that you put some requirements around it, right? And the requirements can be simple. It can be tag 3 friends that you think would want this same giveaway, and mention, you know, 3 people that would also want to come, that you would like to have come to the class with you, and make sure that they like it, make sure that they share it, and make sure that they're engaging other people with it, because you want that one giveaway to spiderweb out as far and as wide as it possibly can to grab your exposure and gain your exposure in the geographical area that you're in.
Yeah, and on that topic, between likes and shares, likes are good, shares are golden, because when somebody shares it, that blasts out to their entire network of people on social media and makes you a blip on their radar. So that's huge. You definitely want to make sure people are sharing your content. Now, we've talked about Facebook a great deal. We touched on Instagram. There's really not much to dive into on Instagram without really getting into hashtag campaigns, but that's probably
we can probably do some how-to videos on maybe some best practices that we see coming from the firearms space. So, you know, how do you do your Instagram story, and how many times a day or a week should you be doing Instagram stories, and you know, when should you mention a manufacturer versus tag a manufacturer in your photo of their product, and those kinds of things? Because there are some rules, not rules, but there are some best practices that we know and that we've learned or that we've witnessed that we can certainly share.
And it's by no means difficult. No. I know that some of this may seem way out there compared to how you're operating now, but I can guarantee that if you take these steps, you're going to see an increase in your revenue.
Yeah, and some of you probably are waiting for us to take the training wheels off of a conversation like this and dive way deeper. So we know we've got that spectrum of listeners out there, so we'll try to piece out that content.
I would encourage them to post something on our wall on Facebook.
Yeah. And add your tips and tricks and what you see that's working,
or just ask. Say, bust out into a show about, you know, this specific topic, and we'll dive in deep into it.
Yeah. And maybe it isn't something that you want us to explain that you haven't done before, but maybe think back on a situation that you struggled with because we're in the 2A community and we get restricted.
Yes.
You know, how do you get an ad sponsored? Well, guess what? We own a business that is nothing but firearms sales and distribution for more than the last several years, and so we have fought that battle and been ban-hammered enough times that we've figured out how to get around a lot of those.
Yeah, we fought the good fight and we've won.
So there's
definitely, and we'll have to hit this on another podcast, but if you post an ad that's firearms related, there's a very good chance that this is if you do a paid ad or or something like that on Facebook. There's a very strong possibility, if not guarantee, that it's going to get flagged, and that by no means means that you can't use that content. You just now have to appeal it. So topics get flagged by an algorithm. It's a robot that's screening content, and if certain words pop up,
it also gets flagged by skinny jean snowflakes that see a firearm in the ad and say nope.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's ways to beat that, so we'll touch on that later if people show interest, but we know how to get paid ads in the firearm space. You just have to appeal it, and at that point it goes off to a real person who actually physically looks at the ad,
and then you use their terms of use against them.
Yeah, it's not rocket science, and it is completely worth the effort. Okay, so we've touched Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. That's relatively easy as well. As far as this conversation, you start your own YouTube page, and we'll teach you how to do that. I would definitely you would want to set up a Google Plus account first, which YouTube is owned by Google. So by setting up a Google Plus page, that gives you access to creating your own channel and whatnot. From there, it's just posting it, and you can do that from your phone. You can record a video on your phone.
You don't have to make any of this harder than it needs to be, guys. I mean, you already own the technology to do 99% of it, and most of the time it's in your pocket. A smartphone can pretty much handle everything we're talking about. Now, some of the posting and everything else, at least from my perspective, is easier to do from an actual computer, but if you had to, and all you had was a cell phone, smartphone, then you could do it all from there.
Yep. Definitely. And there are apps out there that allow you to, like I said, post on multiple platforms. If you're interested in learning more about those, we can do a segment on that. No big deal. So here's the big thing. Here's the big obstacle that most firearms instructors out there have yet to summit, and that is a website. So just like word of mouth, if you're not within my feed on Facebook, or I'm not connected to you in some way, and I want to get into the firearms market, or get my CCW, first off, if I'm a new person to the firearms community, you're probably not in my feed because it's never been a prior passion of mine. It's new, it's fresh. So it's going to be awful hard to capitalize on those guys on a wide scale. So what are they going to do when they get their gun and they want to go to a course to get their CCW, or go to a basic firearms, a basic handgun course? They're going to do it, what I deem the old-fashioned way, and that's go to Google. They're going to Google, firearms instructors in my city, and insert your city here. I mean, for us, it's Omaha. So they're going to get on to Google and say CCW instructors Omaha or something like that. And if you don't have a website, you're not Googleable. And while Facebook is king when it comes to advertising space, it does not equal a transaction. It does not hit everybody. That's why this whole show is about penetrating your audience, and that is because your audience is all over the place. People go about things in different ways, and from a search standpoint, Google is king, and that's why if you don't have one, you need one, and that's a website. And just because you have a website, all things are not created equal.
Yeah. That definitely goes back to the apples and apples conversation we've had about other topics. But, if you don't think you need a website because you're having success, as you would call it right now, through just a Facebook page, if that's one of the instructors, because, a lot of the guys that we work with or that come over to us for websites, that's how they've always done it for the last couple of years. And that's fine. There's nothing against it. But, how do you take payment? How do you schedule out your course calendar? How do you control, if nothing else, how do you control what they see and what they see you for? What does your professional image look like? That was one other thing we didn't really talk about, other than saying that we've learned how to overcome it. Pretty much all of these big companies hate the to a world, period. We are demonized by it. Almost every terms and conditions has something about it in it.
And that's right down to Google.
And that's all the way down to Google. Yeah, we've fought that battle too. But the thing is, they can't control what you own. And if you own your website, you own 100% of how you can portray yourself.
Yes, everything should be about getting them into your house, which your house is your website, because that's where the magic transaction takes place. You know, the social media is how you keep them in the loop, but ultimately you want it to end in a transaction, and all of that should be done on your website. Everything should be driving traffic over to your website. And we can help you with that. We've touched on it in a previous podcast, but we've created a very robust web platform for a price point that I think anybody can afford.
Yeah, absolutely.
We brought it down to the price point of a smartphone and or your DirecTV bill that you pay monthly. That is the barrier of entry, and the difference here is this one puts money back in your pocket. This one equals dollars. I can guarantee it that if you don't have a website and you cross over to us, or hell, even a competitor, even if you outsource this somewhere else, it's going to equate to revenue. You're going to generate revenue. And the only difference between us and them, well, there's lots, but we're one of you. All of our content, to include our platforms, are built by gun guys for gun guys, and I think we've done a hell of a job. You know, not to toot my own horn, but there's no one that's stepping to us in this world right now.
Yeah, that kind of goes to the whole apples to apples. You know, as Bill says, if you want to go to a competitor, perfectly fine, because we really care more about the mission and the cause getting advanced than anything else. But if you really wanted to drill down into what does a competitor look like, we would be hard pressed to even list off the competitors that we would send you to. I mean, sure, there's plenty of companies that host websites or let you build your own, but it's not purpose built for a firearms instructor or a hunting guide, or any of those types of customers that are what we are and do what we do.
Well, and you can DIY a website. That's a fact. You can go on to companies like, I'll even drop a name. I'll give them a plug, Squarespace or something like that, and create your own website. But it's not going to do everything for you like ours will. We have built our platform to be as automated as we could make it, and all of that is to relieve the burden of being an instructor on your end. We're streamlining this whole operation to where you can focus more on your coursework than the maintenance side of things or the clerical side of things. But most importantly, what it equals is a transaction. And again, we touched on it before of getting stood up.
Yeah, eliminating the no-shows, right? So, and we won't dive deep into that because we've talked about it before, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But the last time you showed up at your Saturday course to train, a group of 10 students, and 3 out of the 10 commits didn't show up. But what happens when they didn't pay prepay? Maybe you expected them to pay cash on site. Well, you just lost out on the 3 student revenue. Whereas if they prepaid, 2 things would happen. One, you'd at least have the money, right? So they didn't show up, but you still have the money. You can maybe, depending on your policies, put them into a later course. Or 2, because they've put money where their mouth is, they've made the monetary commitment to show up, they're going to find a way to show up to that course regardless because they've already put the money down for it.
Non-refundable deposit. Yeah. That's what we do. So, and it makes sense. I mean, look at any other business out there. If there's a commitment to be made, there's usually a deposit, and that's to prevent people from backing out or no-showing. I mean, that's time is money. What else do we got here on this topic, Jeff?
I don't know. I feel like we could go a bunch of different places, but at the same time, we're kind of at that time limit. We try to keep these 2 to make it easy for you guys. So maybe we'll end up having a part 2 or part 3 of audience penetration.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, find us on Facebook and let us know what you want to hear. I mean, we're firing from the hip, and we're trying to keep the training wheels on. I think some of our YouTube content that we're working on are, our how-to guides. They'll actually be screen shares. So you'll see us clicking through how to register for a business Facebook page or a YouTube page. We're going to generate that kind of content for you guys, but jump on our Facebook page and let us know some other topics you want to hit. If you want us to dive deeper, which we plan on, but this is the beginning. We don't want to jump straight to the middle or to the end. We want to help individuals out there who have been doing this either for a very short time or even a long time start considering, are there other avenues or are there other methods I could put into practice that would increase the effectiveness of my business? I mean, it's all about marketing. Everything's about marketing.
Yeah. Completely agree. Yeah, if you're not marketing, or if you've restricted yourself to a marketing budget, it's probably because you don't know how to track what you're getting back from an ROI perspective on what you're putting in. And again, if you're not marketing, then there's really only one place, one direction that your business can go. So we'll harp on that over and over and over again. But again, as always, thanks for your time, guys. Make sure to jump on our Facebook page and leave any comments or feedback so we can tailor this more towards you. And if you haven't already, give our podcast a subscribe, and you'll get notified when the new episodes come out.
Thanks a lot, guys.